welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah here. So today we're going to be talking about the toxic mentality surrounding our fear of judgment. Now, if you're watching the vlog, there's not many people who do actually watch the vlog, but you do get some fun little moments in there visually. I'm wearing fun buns today, very appropriately for the topic of not caring what people think about you, because these are certainly a bit of a weird hairstyle, but I like them. I find them to be fun, and so I'm wearing them today. So, now we've all been there. We've all fallen into that trap of worrying excessively about what others think of us. In fact, if you really put yourself on the spot, how many times this week already have you allowed your assumptions of, maybe receiving judgment from others to dictate your choices and or your actions? How many times today even have you done this? Interestingly enough, it is human nature to practice concern with the idea that people in our direct vicinity, direct circle, and sometimes even perfect strangers might not approve of everything that we wear, to the way that we behave, to our life decisions, to the way that we look, and even what we say. And I'm no stranger to this. I know that I can come across as fairly controversial and blunt, and I don't have any issue with that because I'm not worried about what people think of me. I'm not worried as to whether or not people are going to be happy with what I'm saying. I simply am just speaking my mind. So in a world that is submerged in the likes of social media, keeping up appearances, and where we are more self-aware and more self-critical than ever, it can be a fairly dangerous path to walk down. And when I talk about self-awareness, I'm not talking about retrospective self-awareness that actually applies to developing and growing ourselves, but a self-awareness that almost relies on external validation and relies on an external influence, almost that we are driving ourselves based on what other people think of us. So that type of self-awareness, which is almost like a hyper self-awareness, but it's certainly externally driven. So it's a dangerous path to walk down, living your life in fear of judgment. If you currently feel like this is the center of your universe, if this is exactly how you operate, then this podcast is probably going to change your life and maybe change your perspective. So how do you identify if you're currently allowing your fear of judgment to consume you and possibly hold you back from making some of the biggest decisions of your life and possibly some of the best experiences of your life as well? Let's dive into the standard structure of my podcast because I like to figure out what it looks like. Then I want to tell you obviously how it's not working for you, and then what you can do to fix that or to work on it. And this is all non-individualistic. This is not psychological advice. This is just simply mentorship and life, life mentorship towards improving this facet of your life, right? Under no circumstances does this apply to people who have serious mental health conditions, whereby you will probably need a lot more specific care from a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But this is just going to help you with the bigger picture and maybe polish up some of the moments in your day that might be interrupting your goals, your drive, your values, and your beliefs. So what it looks like. Do you hesitate before speaking because you're afraid that those around you might not like what you've got to say? Have you pulled out of pursuing a passion because somebody close to you or even somebody that you don't know very well has decided that it's just not right for you, or they've given you the advice to steer clear of it? Have you given up on a project because someone has made fun of you? Have you maybe been put down by somebody who's convinced you that you are not good enough to make it through to the end, or that you are not right for what you are choosing to do? Perhaps you've changed the way that you dress, the style of your hair, or even the way that you do your makeup, whether you wear makeup or not, simply because you're afraid of what others will think of you. Okay, so again, the fun buns on my head today were not influenced by whether or not I think people would like them. It was because I wanted to put fun buns on my head. Nothing has really changed since I was a child. I've always dressed the way I wanted to. I've always worn my hair the way I wanted to. And Don't get me wrong, there were moments in my life as well that I was geared this way, but the shift starts with you. So perhaps you've, hid a part of your identity, holding back from showing your true personality, stepping into your true self and practicing authenticity with others. If you feel like you're constantly wearing a mask because you feel like you need to protect yourself from judgment, then this podcast is definitely for you. Are you left ruminating on whether or not you said the right thing in a conversation? Whether you looked your best in a photograph, or possibly struggling in social situations to speak up or express your emotions, your feelings, even in one-on-one conversation? Are you afraid of posting what you want to on social media, or showing your true self in a different light that may not be particularly flattering, or sharing your journey with others maybe, because you're afraid of what they might have to say or assume about you? Okay, so much of this is, as I said, it's all externally driven. Do you have a fear of public places, gyms, exercising or walking outdoors, shopping centres, attending parties or even events, simply due to the fact that you're concerned what others will be staring at you or passing judgment upon you? Not necessarily because you're introverted, okay? This is not for those. It's really weird because I talk about introversion to a lot of close friends of mine. Weirdly enough, people assume I'm an extrovert, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I'm actually incredibly introverted. I love my time alone. In fact, I don't really seek out friendship as much as what I probably should. And it's because I like solitude. I like being in silence. I don't necessarily like one-on-one conversation. However, what I have done is built up confidence over the years to be able to execute myself well in conversation, in presentation, in that I probably would appear extroverted, but there's nothing I actually enjoy more than just being alone. So weirdly, people can get confused between being introverted and being socially anxious. And sometimes, yes, they can intertwine, but sometimes we can disguise our fear of being judged by others in an introverted personality or a state. So what you'll often find is that an introvert who is incredibly stable and secure in themselves is not afraid of speaking their mind. They might like a lot of time alone, and they might not necessarily like lots of public places or, interactions with people, but they don't have any sort of issue being themselves when they need to be. So I would find as well that this can probably be a combination, maybe what you would call an omnivert or an ambivert or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, being introverted and shy doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be ashamed of who you are. So there is a clear difference between having issues with fear of judgment and, as I said, serious mental health conditions such as agoraphobia and social anxiety. Okay, so if you do have severe social anxiety or agoraphobia, you will definitely require treatment on a more personal level. So obviously today I'm going to talk about our basic fear of judgment, though, nothing specific about, because I definitely don't like to go down the route of very complex emotional issues and mental health issues, because that's not my scope. But I like to talk about life motivational topics, and I want to talk about basic fear of judgment, which seems to affect majority of the population in one way or another from day to day. Okay, so why is this holding you back? You're probably thinking, all right, I want to express myself more. I want to be myself more. I want to stop being afraid of whether people are judging me, but is it that bad? Is it that bad that I care about what others think of me? And the answer is yes. It's holding you back, and it has been for quite some time. Currently, if you're allowing your fear of judgment to fuel or possibly influence every single decision, or perhaps a lot of your decisions made in your life, if you really think about it, you're not living your life for you. You're just not. You are living your life for others, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The reason you're alive is not to exist for the purpose of other people's motivations or aspirations. It's for yours. You may be holding yourself back, playing life smaller than you need to, or possibly taking a safe option every single time because you're afraid of what everybody else is going to think about it. You're afraid as to whether or not you might come across as too much, or you might, people might see you as being arrogant. That's something that I think I've received a lot over the last few years, is that people see me as being overconfident or arrogant, or, they might not like me at first, and that's okay. The weird thing is I've become so accustomed to people not even knowing who I am and being okay with that. And over time, people can possibly maybe eventually discover that you aren't what they thought you were, but that really doesn't matter. Like, in the big scheme of things, you are going to be better off, just being yourself than you are trying to constantly meet the needs of everybody else's expectations of you. So if you can hear my dog snoring in the background, I'm sorry, but this is the best time for me to do a podcast while she's sleeping, so it's a nice calming background noise for you. So you might be finding yourself stuck or frozen in the same position, fear of moving forward, changing directions, or even making any sort of changes or decisions in your life, okay? Your stagnance can sometimes stem from your fear of external validation or disapproval. So you imagine that if you're so worried to put a foot wrong or to say something wrong or to be judged, you're not going to move very much, are you? You're probably just going to sit still and hope for the best. This is a pretty frightening concept, being geared to operate and function wholly and solely in relation to what others want for you instead of what you want for yourself. Think about that. Think about how frightening that is for your future, that your life is not dictated to by your decisions, your values, your beliefs, your morals, but everybody else's. It seems to be bred into Australian culture quite strongly. It's actually less of a problem in America, funnily enough. But something called tall poppy syndrome seems to be a really strong standing theme still amongst Australian men and women. And it's something that I received really heavily as a child, growing up in a small country town. It was really prevalent. It still is. That's why I moved away. It was so bad there because people wanted to stay where they were and they wanted to keep people where they are as well. And the easiest way to do that is to put people down, to bring them down, to point out the black sheep of the whole family, or to point out the person in the crowd who doesn't quite look right. In that, bringing people down if they're standing out, right, or succeeding seems to be more normal, right, than supporting others. Wild. This seems kind of backwards in a society that should rather be aiding and developing and growing rather than limiting one another. So we would actually achieve so much more if we just supported one another rather than working against each other constantly to try and make ourselves feel better. So judgment, not just receiving judgment and obviously being afraid of judgment, but judging people is incredibly toxic. Overtly judging people is incredibly toxic. At the end of the day, it's not possible to make every single person in your life or in this world happy. Nor is it possible to seek the approval of everybody that you've come into contact with, okay? That type of behavior is positively exhausting, to say the least. Trying to make everyone happy, trying to make everyone love you and like you, and to buy the latest fashion gear, or to make sure that you keep up appearances with the neighbors, or whatever it might look like on paper, just to give everybody a sense of satisfaction that you're doing what you should be doing or what they want you to be doing, is exhausting because everybody's going to have a different idea of what's right, yeah, and what they perceive to be ideal, for their life. So, and you're not, as I said, you're not living a life for you when you do this. Everybody has differing opinions and approaches to life, but that does not necessarily mean that they need to be projected or forced upon you, and you do not need to force your opinions or your values and beliefs onto other people. So, and I'm not just talking about receiving, but also judging other people. It's not just about receiving judgment. It's about the process of judging other people. So, everybody having these different opinions as well, we all have different tastes in music. We all have different tastes in clothing, and certainly different interests and pursuits in life. There are so many different tastes in food as well, different cultures. And if we were to go around pointing the finger at everybody for what they're doing that isn't the same as us, then we would be judgy. And so if we don't want to receive that, we really don't want to put that out into the world either. If we decided to judge others based on these differences alone, then there would be no point of difference between us, right? We'd all be the same, and that's kind of boring. You hear that saying, it's like everybody needs to have their own personality because the world would be bloody boring if we didn't. It's important to accept your individual interests and passions, and accept the individual interests and passions of others without having to convince one another to do exactly the same thing or even follow a similar path. And it's often assumed as well that when you meet somebody, let's say they might be passionate about a particular pursuit, art, chess, a sport, soccer, and their immediate compulsion is to start to talk about why you don't like what they do. Seems bloody batshit crazy. As long as you are not directly harming others or harming yourself, okay? Generally, aside from obviously things like the keto diet and very non-factual processes, the opinions, and because they're opinions, that it's not facts, it's opinions, and judgment of others can be fairly unwarranted, unhelpful, and unnecessary. Since when did you ask the opinion of a random stranger on the internet? This is what I find so fascinating. In the comment section, it seems like when people come in and jump in and give their 2 cents, it's like instead of comment, it said, tell me what you think, tell me how to live my life, or something like that. It's like the comments are no longer encouragement and support. There's this trolling that occurs, and I'm no stranger to this. On a weekly basis, I receive comments on my YouTube, on my Instagram, my Facebook, my TikTok, lots of hateful comments about bodybuilding, or, maybe I look like a man apparently. I'm not sure how that happens, but, and there's also even things from my past, from my childhood, from when I was younger, from my hometown. Like, there is just constant, unwarranted opinions, unwarranted comments, really even too unprompted. I haven't never even done anything or said anything to these people. And this is where we see that the internet can be fairly toxic. And so a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about the internet because they are so afraid of these random people making comments or passing judgment. So when you get better at the practice of caring less about this, right, it gives you a full freedom in your life to execute your own wants, your needs, and your dreams beyond the limitations of others. So I'm going to be honest, the last thing that I think of doing is chasing down people who don't want my help, my assistance, or even my advice. I don't pass judgment on somebody for any particular reason, unless they're doing the wrong thing. Morally, if I can see someone doing the wrong thing by other people, that's when I tend to get pretty, passionate. Yeah, I'll usually say or do something. And the debate can be opened then, when it's like, okay, you know what, this is hurting somebody else, or this is harmful to somebody else, or this is not fair, and I will say something. But for the most part, I don't walk down the street and give random people nutrition advice. I don't look at people and go, oh, you look really unhealthy. You should be doing this. It's like, I don't think about that. I'm not worried about what other people are doing, right? I don't pass judgment on someone for any particular reason, because even that in itself requires a lot of energy on my behalf that is going to be mostly wasted. And certainly as well, the feeling of having a go at somebody for no reason. I mean, I've never gotten into this habit where I've just been nasty for no reason, or, searched people's photos or videos on the internet to try and to put hate on. I've never done it. I've never left a hateful comment on somebody's photograph unless they were making fun of somebody else. And then I would stand up for that person. But I just don't see the use in doing it. It's not useful, it's not helpful, it's awful. And all it does is breed your own negativity as well. In fact, my opinion, my judgment of others is completely invalid. Okay? My opinion and my judgment of others is completely invalid. Just as it is in reverse. Okay? Just as other people's opinions of me and their judgment of me. I do not and I should not have a strong influence over somebody else's life if they wish to live differently to me. This is their wishes. This is up to them, right? I can't control them. It's not my role. Why? Why am I getting so frustrated about this? Why are you getting so frustrated about it? Why is anyone getting so frustrated about the decisions that other people make for their own fucking lives? It's actually wild, because I think a lot of the time when people do pass judgment and do get really involved in other people's lives, they are generally trying to distract themselves from their own, right? They've got their own shit that they want to deal with, so they just go and attack somebody else for a little bit, and it takes them away from their own problems. So the next time somebody says to me, you judge my nutrition choices, I would simply reply, you don't pay me enough, and you don't pay me at all to do that. I don't have the capacity to care unless you want me to. I don't have the capacity to judge or care or worry about thousands of people unless they want to be helped. So I'm not going to go and chase people down for that. I'm not going to let it bother me, because unfortunately by doing that, you're barking up the wrong tree. You're not going to be well received. So, in reverse, even if you think it's the right thing to do, to, tell somebody you shouldn't be doing that, you should be doing this, probably don't unless they've asked for your advice. Let them discover this themselves. But this can come across as judgy. This can come across as, you then projecting what you believe is right onto somebody else. So Sometimes I find myself fighting back at people if they pass judgment onto me, to prove the process is completely pointless. So if I do get a bit of hate online, sometimes I'll bite back and be like, okay, who are you to judge? Like, look at your life. It's like, we could do it in reverse. If you want to come at me, but most of the time it's actually less so more recently, in that I found that it's just more peaceful to simply let it go, let it be, continue on my path as I was. If I let that comment interrupt me for too long or sit in my thoughts for too long, I've wasted half an hour or an hour on that person, or that person's, they might have had a shit day and they're just putting it on me. I've wasted time on that I could be doing something far more productive for myself. Whether it's the opinion of somebody close to you or somebody who you are not very connected to, it's simply an opinion or an approach that they might prefer, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to take this on board every single time that it's thrown your way. It's like, if apples are being thrown at you, right? If you've got apples thrown at you and there's rotten apples and there's good apples, you can let the rotten apples go by. You can dodge them. You can pick them up and throw them back, but keep the good ones, keep the good apples. You don't have to keep every single apple thrown at you. If you have a bad apple thrown your way, you don't have to take it on board. You could be selling yourself short of achieving some of the most incredible things you ever thought were possible in your life, okay? If you continue to allow the judgment of others to dictate your thoughts, your choices, and your actions, and even so, it makes you fucking miserable. Imagine if today, instead of putting fun buns in my hair because I felt like doing it, I thought about people staring at me or judging me or thinking I look silly or whatever, and I just put a boring ponytail in my hair and I was sad. You continuously project and put out this misery of the byproduct of others judging you, or your fear of others judging you. Whether you're afraid of getting your nails done all crazy because you think people are going to judge you, or whether you don't want to wear a dress because you think maybe it's a little bit too out there, whatever it might be. It's not just about your physical appearance. Whether you are afraid of being judged for studying, art instead of going to medical school because you're worried about your parents judging you or disowning you or whatever it might be. All of this leads to misery. You are not being true to yourself. You're not being true to your wants and needs. You're not being true to what you truly desire, and you end up miserable. I do believe it's probably more of a chronic issue when we are younger than when we are older, and certainly a learning curve that teaches us to mature and develop into our true selves. But it can follow us through to our aging years if we do not address it accordingly. Admittedly, when I was much younger, I was rather concerned with what others thought of me. Living in a small town, as I said, where everyone knew your business didn't help very much. And still to this day, years later, I still receive plenty of judgment from those people, from other people. It's just I don't talk about it very much because I just don't care. So even though they may never have got to know me, right? Or even had a decent conversation with me, but this has been a huge part of what influences behavior and choices, to the point where, I would probably allow it to consume me for days and weeks on end at times previously. But changing your perspective, changing the way that you view the validity of somebody else's opinion of you, and certainly even removing that cause for concern, stopping yourself from constantly worrying about it and just doing what you want to do anyway, can shift that entire experience of your life around for you. Admittedly, obviously, that was, a process of deciding that others thinking whatever they want to think of me is not important, right? And it's about separating your identity from the identity of others. We do not have the same experiences, preferences, values, and beliefs, and even the same goals. So it involves separating you from them and knowing that you do not have to be exactly the same as they are. So I do not want to live the same life as another person, and therefore sometimes their input is just not warranted. It's completely invalid in accordance to my story and my timeline and my experiences, and the same goes for you, right? Now, this doesn't mean that you cannot be open to different opinions and advice, but certainly think of it this way. If it doesn't feel right and it's harming you to the extent where you have to overthink what someone else has said, or possibly the way that you've received it, or even something that you may have said or done, it's only a waste of your time obsessing over it, and it's only going to damage your ability to move forward. Again, this is where we become frozen, we become stuck, because of the limitations that somebody else has placed upon us, or maybe our own assumptions of their limitations. We've just assumed they've judged us without any sort of proof of that. So life truly is far too short to give a shit what anybody thinks of you. And this type of concept can be incredibly liberating. Sometimes people can assume that this might look like arrogance, but will often struggle with this process themselves. So if they're calling you arrogant for doing what you want to do with your life, maybe think about whether they are able to do the same for their own life. Are they living their true, authentic self? They're usually very heavily concerned with what others think of them. So it's interesting that when people perceive true personality projected and put out there, it's like when someone is like, you see them doing it, right? There's like women out there, you're like, hell yeah, go you. Like, I don't know how you got there, but you're so confident, you're so happy, and you're so sure of yourself. And I wish I was like that, right? And this is it's what people do when they look at people who are confident. They'll either take that type of role, or they'll sit in this position which is like, oh, that's arrogant, and they stand out, and why do they have to do that? It's like, all right, cool, judgy pants. Like, what are you achieving from that? And generally, these people who are super judgy are very worried about what other people think of them. It's crazy. So much of letting go of the judgment of others is realizing that even if people do judge you, that it is just not important. Okay? It's just not important. It's not. If you think about it, how important is it? Really? Is it life or death what this motherfucker thinks of you? It just isn't. This is why I swear I don't care. I genuinely don't care. I have a respect for certain social norms, absolutely. But if you don't like my swearing, don't listen to my podcast. That's very simple. And it's not illegal for me to swear. And I like swearing. I'm passionate. So it's something that gets into my podcast because that's who I am. I'm not afraid of people judging me. I'm not afraid of whether or not it comes across as professional because some people actually really enjoy it. And that's fine. I don't care if you do or you don't. That is the key to not caring what people think of you. It's just taking a neutral standpoint and just being who you are, not trying to hide that person. So it's something that you don't need to get hung up on or concerned about, and that you should really try not to get hung up on or concerned about. Much of this is learning how to laugh it off, ignore it, switch off, disengage, and walk away from anything that doesn't quite align with you and for what you're truly wanting to achieve for yourself. The judgment of others may be acting as a significant distraction from what you're actually wanting to achieve, right? If I'd had allowed the judgment of launching my own business to stop me or hold me back, which I did get judgment, I received lots of judgment, lots of criticism from my family, actually, weirdly enough. Sometimes my friends as well, not as much. I mean, not my true friends. And then acquaintances, people in the industry as well. There are so many people who were like, oh, that's really hard to break into and it's really competitive. And, even my direct family members were like, oh, running your own business is really risky. But if I had have done that, if I look back now and I think, okay, if I had have just gone, all right, well, I won't, I'll listen to the opinions and I'll, yeah, you're right. It's probably safer not to do it. I would not have reached a point where I'm now earning, and I'm really transparent about this, 5 times the salary I was earning in a full-time role just 4 years ago, I think. Yeah, 4 years ago when I was full-time managing. I had my business part-time because I've been doing this for 6 years in total, but I had my business kind of on the side and it was just still on the side and I was really scared of doing my own thing because I was afraid of not being stable. I was afraid of not being able to, grow it to the point where it is today. I would not have been able to reach this point 5 times the salary of a management role at a gym. Crazy to think that. Often the fear that is surrounding judgment is teamed with hesitation and paired with mental roadblocks, which can be incredibly detrimental for your progress, your aspirations, and taking the next step in your life, career, or passions. Okay, so the fear that you have in relation to people judging you or worrying or, that this isn't the right thing to do because so-and-so might not like it or approve is literally building a wall. It's a wall in front of your face in the way of everything that you want for yourself. It's just right there. It's like you are building it in front of yourself or you're allowing other people to build the bricks around you. Some of the most successful people in the world are judged daily. Like, think about it. Really well-known, famous millionaires, billionaires, whatever you want to call it, rich people, models, actors, I don't give a shit, neuroscientists, whatever. And if you think about it, these people are judged publicly, and their decisions are judged. Even famous inventors were judged, and they still kept going with what they wanted to do because they didn't allow it to bother them. It didn't move them away from what they wanted and what they were heading towards. For some reason, they kept going. If they were to allow judgment to dictate their next steps, they would never have gotten to where they are today, right? So what you can do to change it. For the second half of the podcast, I'm going to talk about what you can do to almost prevent yourself from worrying about judgment, and certainly even when you are judged, to just let it go, to just not give a shit. If you have a look at anyone, again, fairly successful in life, it almost seems as though they have an untouchable confidence. They don't give a shit, as though they really don't care what other people think about them. And the truth is, they don't. I'm one of them. I don't care. Occasionally, maybe for like 30 seconds, I might let it bother me, and then I just move the fuck on. Because I know the benefits of that. I know the benefits of not giving a shit what people think of me. I love it. It's great. It's a free world. It's wonderful. I can be silly. I can be happy. I can be myself. I can be creative. I can, not hold back. I'm not going to offend anybody. And if I do, I'm very sorry, but I'm not going to intentionally do that. And even if I do, I'll apologize. I don't think I have offended anybody so far. But even in that as well, I don't let that sit for too long with me because I know that my intentions are good. And I'm not worried if people think poorly of me or don't like me or they want to make up their own mind about me, because it's not my job to try and get everybody to like me. It's not your job to get everyone to like you or to approve of what you're doing. Even your family, even your friends. I'm pretty sure my parents are still a little bit disapproving of what I do, no matter how successful I get at it. And that's okay. I'm really not worried about it because I'm happy. So it's important to identify when you're allowing your fear of judgment to take over your life. At the end of the day, practicing caring less about what others think of you is simply that. It's not complicated. There was a wonderful book written, which I actually haven't read yet. It's funny I'm recommending it, but I haven't read it because I know what it's going to be about. But I've heard a lot about it, and it's titled How to Give Less Fucks. Very, very popular book. It's been recommended so many times that I strongly recommend picking it up or downloading the audiobook, because I suppose what it can help do is rid you of this really unnecessary attachment to the opinions of others. And just in general, when shit goes wrong, letting go of it. Taking a softer approach to absorbing what others might say, possibly practicing assuming the opposite of the worst case scenario, is a really good way of avoiding this type of behavior or practice. So stepping back from the process of overthinking every little thing that you do or say. We can't take back what we do or say, but we can certainly attempt to do our best to, give it our best shot at any point in time. You are a human being, and often you must forgive yourself and dwell less on what has already happened and what has been and done, and shift your focus to the next moment or the day ahead. If you're a person who focuses a lot on the past, a lot on whether you said the right thing or whether you, offended somebody or whatever, accidentally, not on purpose, just in general, if you overthink and overthink and overthink to the point where that's consuming all of your thoughts, imagine that none of that energy is going towards your next exciting thing. None of it is going towards something that's going to be beneficial for you. So the next one is take action. Stop hesitating. If you find yourself holding back because of the thoughts and opinions of others, this is possibly the biggest disservice you could do yourself. Imagine all of the times in your life that you would have achieved something if it wasn't for somebody else stopping you, right? And it's funny, they didn't actually stop you, you stopped you, but their opinions influenced you to stop. So crazy to think that there may have been so many missed opportunities, so many times where you held yourself back because of maybe one sentence, one conversation. Often a great tactic to use is simply, in avoiding hesitation. it is fueled by the opinions of others, right? So the hesitation is fueled by the opinions of others. If you have a very supportive and well-versed professional and personal network, the opinion of an outlier should not be enough to shift you. One person, if you've got all these people around you and it's one motherfucker in the corner going, that's what it sounds like to me when I've got some dickhead in the corner going, you shouldn't do that because that's not healthy. It's like, that's right. You don't have any sort of qualifications in this area. I love your opinion. I love your passion, but I'm probably not going to listen to anything you have to say right now because you are just not someone who matters to me in my life. You're just not. It's not arrogant. I just don't care. So just one person out of you might have 10, 15, even 5 really good people in your life that are supporting you. And this one person, maybe you've only just met them, maybe they've been around for ages, but this one person, you're allowing them to dictate your thoughts and actions. After all, it's just one opinion, and opinions are not facts. Opinions are not facts. Look at your support network, the people that you interact with daily, okay? Are they actually supportive? Or are they continuously tearing you down or using pessimism and negativity disguised as tough love? I think that there is a very, very fine line between using tough love and honesty with people and, I just told her that because she needed to know. And, if I didn't tell her, then she wouldn't have been able to, figure it out or whatever. It's like you're justifying something here where you've just gone in and given unwarranted advice to somebody when they were probably okay doing what they were doing. Unless they asked you, piss off, leave them alone, let them figure it out themselves. Unless it's a safety issue, obviously. If it's unsafe, that's where I kind of draw the line there, where if somebody's doing something really not in a safe way and you can see that, then I would definitely step in. But if you're just judging someone for the sake of it and you're going, oh, you know what, I don't like the way that person dresses, or, I don't like that t-shirt or your shoes, and you are, throwing that at them, I think that is unnecessary, and just watch yourself. Like I'm saying this to people who are listening to the podcast, not just if you're receiving it. If you find yourself being judgy, stop it. Like, please stop. So it could look like restructuring your direct circle to only contain those who support you and encourage you towards your goals. Now, this is not toxic positivity. This is not, well, I will only accept people in my life that, make me feel good about myself. It's like, no, there are going to be people who are going to challenge you. Of course, absolutely. But in a way that is loving, that is kind, that is gentle, that is when you come to them for help, okay? We don't need to necessarily romanticize only having positive influences in our life, but by the same token, if you are happy doing what you are doing and somebody is coming in over the top of you and is trying to, hold power over you or, act like they know better than you or whatever it is, and you've not even asked them to have that conversation, probably look at reducing how much exposure you have to that person, because that's what I do. Anybody who comes along in life and is just negative Nancy constantly in my ear, you're out. That's it. Bye. See ya. Because I don't gain anything from you and I don't gain anything from my interactions with you. And it's not even that I love constructive feedback. I love constructive criticism. But if all you've got to say is critical things to somebody, you are not their friend, right? You are a person who is trying to gain some sort of benefit from their suffering. If you find yourself continually feeling judged or looked down upon by some of those in your direct circle or even people that you've just met, you are well within your right to distance yourself from these influences. The only way that people can influence your life is if you allow them access to you, okay? Reframe your intense concern of what others are thinking of you to flip around internally and shift your perspective to focus on more of the positive components of reaching your goals or speaking your truth. Think about the positive effect or impact of what you're about to do, instead of whether or not anybody is going to approve of it, okay? So start to think about what your goals are going to achieve for you and what the wonderful things are going to come of it, as opposed to whether, Bob's going to approve of it at the gym or whether he's going to say something to you about it. I've got this character called Bob now I'm bringing into podcasts. Good old Bob. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to be open to constructive criticism and some feedback, but possibly only from those who are qualified to do so, and if you ask them for the help that you need, okay? Otherwise, if sometimes the unwarranted judgment and advice okay, can simply come from the same people over and over again if you really have no idea what's actually right. They have no idea what's actually right for you, right? So sometimes the people who are throwing all this unwarranted advice and getting really judgy and, getting into your head, etc., like we've all got at least one of them in our life, or possibly not anymore. You are the only person who gets to decide what is right for you. At the end of the day, as an adult, you're the only person who gets to decide what is right for you. Remove your personal bias. At the end of the day, sometimes we think and assume that people are watching us, judging us, etc., just depending on our own assumptions that we've already made, without actually even having a conversation with somebody first. So it's like some person's looking at you at the gym a couple times, it might be someone at work, they've said, hey, the document wasn't written very well, can you probably send it back? And we're thinking they're judging us, they don't like us, this. And it spirals in our head. How many times have you actually had a conversation with that person and gone, hey, by the way, what did you mean by that? Or, walked up to someone at the gym and gone, hey, my name's Mariah. Nice to meet you. Do you need help? I saw you looking at me a couple times, but, and they might even say, no, I was really impressed by your lifting or something like that. If they're staring at you, it's either, if it's inappropriate, you can pull them up on it or have someone else pull them up on it. But if you think you're being judged, 90% of the time, you're not actually being judged. This is the crazy thing, right? I used to think it all the time. I used to think people staring at me in the gym, they're judging me, blah, 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 blah. And most of the time when I have an actual conversation with people, they were impressed at how much I was lifting. They were impressed at my muscle definition or whatever. They were just simply looking off into the distance or they wanted to use the piece of equipment I was using. Crazy. Sometimes if we remove the emotion surrounding the fear that we're being judged versus actually being judged, we can separate our thoughts from facts, okay? Thoughts are not facts. Opinions are not facts. Sometimes, and most of the time, emotional assumption that we make about occurrences or instances of judgment that haven't even happened yet, okay, we're just making this shit up in our heads, are simply just our thoughts and not necessarily a reality. So much of this is having a better conversation with yourself. I don't walk around thinking people are judging me. I actually automatically assume they're not. And even if I do get stared at, even if somebody says something to me that's, seems a bit judgy, I just look at it differently. I'm like, okay, they don't have the same life as me. They're not the same person. They don't have the same values. They don't operate the same way that I do. I wouldn't expect them to, and that's okay. Like, I'm actually able to receive judgment fairly well now because I don't see it as a negative thing. I just see it as being different. So most people are so absorbed in their own world that they don't even recognize or concern themselves with others, okay? It's really crazy. Majority of the time, we assume someone's thinking something about us. They're actually probably a lot more concerned with themselves, their own environment, what they're having for dinner, whether they've got to pick the kids up from school, etc., right? Than they are concerned with what we're doing. So this is all about changing this assumptive type of conversation in your mind. And even if you do have interactions with people continuously, give them an opportunity to get to know you, for sure. You don't have to prove anything to them, just be yourself and for you to know them. But if you're continuously having those negative interactions with the same person over and over again, if anything, it's a red flag to give yourself an opportunity to exit, to walk away. Cool. I gave myself a chance. I don't particularly like this person. They give me the ick. I'm out. See ya. I'm sure that I probably give the ick to a couple of people and that's okay. It's not my problem. So, don't assume that everybody's an expert or that they're going to have your best interest at heart with everything that they say. They might think that they do, but at the same time, they probably mean well sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that you need to take super seriously. Share things that you're comfortable sharing with the world, but don't hold yourself back from sharing your journey or stepping into your own. You never know which like-minded individuals as well you might attract into your life. Simply by becoming who you really want to become, by just being yourself, the amount of people who will actually like you that way. It's wild. Like, why be someone else? Why behave like someone else or try and, cover yourself up? And then you're only going to attract people who aren't, they kind of fall in love with that person that isn't actually you. And it's just complicated. It's like, my current partner, my fiance, he loves me. adores me exactly the way that I come. Everything that I do, all of the weirdness, all of the fun, the intellectual discussions, me rambling at him biochemistry or whatever it might be for the day, he loves me, and I had to show up as myself for that to happen. I couldn't show up as somebody else. I couldn't have been worried about what he thought of me. I had to just think, this guy's got to love me, or that's it. It's all I got. So, but I have been in situations, and I think a lot of people have been in relationships, friendships, involved with family that are really judgy. I have been I was in a terrible relationship where I was constantly judged. The person was constantly having a go at me, and the person was constantly telling me I wasn't doing things right and could do this better or X, Y, Z. And there was not a lot of positive affirmation. I couldn't be myself. When I was myself, I was put down, etc. So this doesn't mean you need to change or be worried about what people think of you and act on that. It means that you probably need to change the people around you. Yeah? And we have so much of a say in that. We really do. So find people who are like-minded. When you find these people, when you behave like you, it requires you to be you. It's this amazing situation set up for you to just be yourself, because then people start coming in going, I like this person. This is cool. And that person is now your person. It's definitely your person because they love you. They think the world of you. You can't do that if you're pretending to be somebody else, or you're, trying to cover up yourself constantly. So, you have to act accordingly in alignment with what and who you want to be. Otherwise, as I said, you'll end up in a circle, relationship, career, or friendship that actually isn't right for you at all. So start today. Start by giving less fucks. Trust me when I say it feels wonderful, and it will only open up new opportunities, positive and encouraging interactions and experiences. And maybe, they don't all have to be positive. Some of them can be rewarding for growth. You might think that, okay, now that I give less fucks, I can possibly receive constructive criticism a lot better as well. And see, you finally feel at home, confident and content in your own mind and body and life choices. How epic is that? You no longer feel like a stranger to yourself because of what bloody Bob's doing. I'll better do what Bob's doing, because if I do what I'm doing, Bob's not going to be happy. Who gives a fuck about Bob? What? Bob can live his life separate to yours. So, wear your Ugg boots to the shops, wear the bikini on the beach, post the photo, take the job, lift the heavy weights, tackle the new project, okay? Start the new hobby. Share your journey. Celebrate your wins loudly. Be proud of your accomplishments. Laugh loud in public. Be silly. Wear what you want. Wear the fun buns. They're actually really hard to do. This took me so long. Don't downplay yourself to please others. Sing in the car loudly. Dance in the rain if that's what makes you happy. Practice honesty and transparency with yourself. Be happy unapologetically. Smile at strangers. Be kind just because you can. And even when no one is watching, right? Do it when nobody is watching. Don't pass judgment on others if you don't want to be judged yourself. Not only did I talk in this podcast about, not being worried about being judged, but equally not judging others. Catch yourself when you're doing it. We all do it. We've all done it. Care less about the things and people that make you feel like shit. Care more about what sets your soul on fire and the people who love you as you come and who've always been there to catch you when you fall. And if that's you, if you're the person who you rely on the most in life, if you know that you need to start listening to yourself, your inner dialogue that's saying, hey, I want to try this thing. Hey, I want to wear my hair this way. Hey, I want to wear the bikini. Or I want to go to the gym and lift heavy. Start listening to that person more than you listen to other people. All right, that's it from me. It's a bit of a shorter podcast today. I didn't give you the full hour, but I'm looking forward to doing another one for you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.